If you don't need anything, I have rounds. A good enough sentiment, but I had to catch up by yelling nurse, soft enough so her eyebrows would return in the doorway, at least answering what. Then she had them go further, becoming cute with it. I asked, please, if not much trouble, do I have access to library books? She said you have permission for one, so I repeated, please, genuinely wanting Armand Hammer's most recent autobiography. He's practiced on a few before, I said, but I want his last, the blue book. Squinting like me, she left with perhaps. Then I dreamt about the accident, looking backwards at my wheel snag that fender over and over until fright woke me about to hit that car. Waking, I thought too bad that didn't happen earlier. Any other night, a dream like that would have kept me up, but somewhat satisfied by that explanation, pitch dark took over. I slept deep through the rest of the night until, because the shade was raised, sunshine made me forget I could be groggy. Energy from our light source psyched me up for the day's freshest portion and Mr. Parker's cartload of books that arrived at 7 a.m. when I introduced myself with the worst cliche. All for me? No, wasn't necessary since the rack's up-to-date others didn't vibrate bright white like the shiny, brand-new Hammer letters pulsating from his book's spine. Lucky guy that his publishers could afford such glossy extravagance. Mr. Parker, as his name tag indicated, handed me the book with a cordial smile and said, I heard you want to finish this one. I held my tongue in the big blue book and I perused right away, only raising my eyes once to questions feeling me out as a threat to Dr. Hammer. I mumbled yes, no, and maybe after starting with the title page. Published in 1987 by G.P. Putnam and Sons, 200 Madison, New York, New York. There's a glossary in back for Hammer's favorite art, name dropping. Co-authored by Neil Linden, the book had some heft, but it's shorter and trimmer than huge, making it lighter and easier to hold. The print was easy to read and bind a quality stitch that would take digging into to destroy. No typos, and the hardback's darker shade contrasted with the dust cover's flashier blue. I missed reading after knocking myself out day after long day that left me too exhausted to read, except in elevators. The all-day supersport drained my will to explore that I'd rectify with the free time I now had, no matter how I got it. Released by my hospital bed from human chores, I ignored my prescribed literary shackles and made requests. I asked for 1984 and Brave New World so I could reassess my skepticism toward the benevolent state. I said, Lost Horizon is on your back. Can I try to figure out what it's supposed to be saying again? Of course I was delirious, wanting to ponder Allah's gift of knowledge as love was intended to be. But time is seldom on my economic situation's side, while Mr. Parker left, pretending not to hear. But I had time for that book's duration to get Dr. Hammer's story down. How the enlightened capitalist distinguished himself from the shadow of communism's myth. His autobiography sings his American opportunities praises, or projecting that he had a mature understanding of his parents' 19th century socialist beliefs that were seduced and tainted by 1917's Bolshevik Revolution. Dr. Hammer depicts his father Julius as a caring physician hounded by his era's American distrust of alien politics. He illustrates that while his father did co-found and finance the American Communist Party, Julius also industrially established the visionary reality of capital's pursuit. The stone and mortar enabling his son to become rich from treasure grown from the father's generic drug business that led to the Arm & Hammer fortune, museums, and whatnot. Wanting to appear guileless, Dr. Hammer explains that when alcohol prohibition began, he discovered leaps in sales in the American South because customers were squeezing alcohol from his medicinal tincture of ginger product. He says he went in 1919 to Virginia himself to find out why that item spiked, where in a pharmacy's back room the druggist prepared a ginger ale cocktail for him, and eureka! In true capitalist fashion, he made $1 million by cornering the world's ginger market before the government stopped his exploitation of the process a year later. Not bad for a 22-year-old in 1920, when $1 million was worth $1 million. Of course, Hammer doesn't mention blindness or other maladies like death caused by alternative abuse during America's great ignoring of Prohibition. A man of his times, he actually brags his Greenwich Village carriage house parties had the good stuff. Rather than observing Hammer's backpatting depiction with a grain of salt, some suggest he swam in a skeleton sea that goes something like this for me. Armin's father Julius met Lenin at a political convention in 1905 and never publicly doubted the Bolshevik Revolution through his death in 1948. Customer Day.